Hi Philip Curry, and today we are making Gianduja, classically made from milk chocolate and hazelnut, but there's also dark chocolate versions. It's really easy to make. Let's do it. So we're going to start by chopping our hazelnuts. And then at the same time, we can put our sugar and water into our saucepan over high heat and bring that to a simmer. We just want to make sure that all the sugar is wet and that we're going to cook out a syrup first. We don't want any dry bits of sugar that haven't dissolved, otherwise this can crystallize. So there's two ways we can do this. We can either cook this syrup to a caramel and then coat the nuts, but they can be a bit harder to separate. Or we can just cook this to 118 degrees Celsius or softball stage. Then we're going to add our nuts to the pan and then keep stirring, which is what we're going to do today. At softball stage, turn off the heat and the sugar syrup will eventually crystallize into what we call sablage, I believe. This is where the sugar syrup starts to crystallize and it looks like sand. So we have this kind of sandy, dry coating all around the nuts. So once all the hazelnut pieces are nice and separated, we can turn the heat back onto medium-high heat. And then we want the sugar on the bottom of the pan to start to dissolve. You'll see that it goes from pasty white to clear. And this is the sugar remelting. So we want to keep stirring this mixture around while the sugar starts to caramelize. And then eventually all that sandy white sugar around the nuts will turn to caramel. Once they're all fully coated and nicely caramelized and golden, I'm going to turn off the heat and then add just a tiny teaspoon, half a teaspoon of coconut oil and stir these together really well. Then we're going to turn them onto our work surface or onto a tray and then press them down into a thin layer of a single nut. Now, you want to wait until these are cooled down enough to handle. If you're not confident touching them, then just leave them. And then these are going to break apart into individual little nuts. So we can just rub them together while they're still warm. But if they are hot and too hot to handle, don't worry about it. You can let them cool down fully and then just snap them apart. Now, I've just lined a 20 centimeter square tin with paper. And I'm just dropping all my chopped nuts into the tray. And I want them in a nice even layer across the bottom, over which I'll pour our Gianduja mixture. Now, never mind this big fancy contraption, it is just my big fancy mixer, but what we're looking at here is our food processor. So you can be using a NutriBullet, a Vitamix, or like upright blender, or a food processor. Just be cautious that whichever method you're using, you will have to scrape down the sides of the bowl every once in a while to get our mixture blending. So to our food processor, the hazelnuts, bit of sugar, and our chocolate. If you want, you can also add a pinch of salt. Now I'm just blending these on high speed. Watch what happens. So as with our praline, we're going to end up with a paste first. As the chocolate starts to melt and as the oil starts to come out of the nuts, we're going to keep blending it until it starts to turn to a paste. So we have a lovely smooth mixture, and I also love adding a whole dried vanilla bean. This is a bean that I've scraped the seeds out of and left to dry. This just gives it a really nice, dare I say, Nutella flavor. Now, there are two things that become apparent. Our mixture is warm and flows like chocolate. Now, all we need to do is cool this down to 20 to 22 degrees Celsius. And And there are two ways that we can do that. One is on a stone surface with a scraper, just like this, where we just move it around our work surface until it cools down, and then scrape it into a bowl. Or we can just pour it into a bowl, put it in the fridge for 3 minutes at a time and just keep stirring it, put it back in the fridge for 3 more minutes, and then take it out and check the temperature. Do this until it's 22 degrees. Then we can add our caramelized nuts and just pour it in the tin and let it set. And we check that with a digital thermometer. Now, a bonus lesson that you get today, because I'm showing you, bonus lesson is take a scraper, take a little bit of the mixture to the side, and then just with a swift movement, we can scrape it into a bowl. So this is how I temper chocolate as well, without getting chocolate down on the floor or in the front of my counter. So then we would just put this in a bowl, then put it in the fridge. Give it a good stir. You want it to cool down to 22 degrees before we add our caramelized hazelnut pieces, and you can stir them in and then pour them Now we just want to pat the mixture to the edges, gently just pressing it until it reaches the edges. Then give it a few taps just to level it, and then we can let this finish setting at room temperature, and just before cutting it, we can put it in the fridge for 10 minutes. So we just want to cut. So there we have it. We've got smooth gianduja with crunchy caramelized hazelnuts. It's like ASMR. That is so good.